But Brandon, let's move on. We're going into rivalry territory for North Carolina. Both of them, though, at the bottom of the ACC. So they're both like, when's basketball season start? But we're looking at the Duke Blue Devils in our next segment of the podcast. And I want to throw a different curveball at you. We usually look at the defense, the players, the quarterback, the coach. I want to start with the schedule for Duke, because this is a team returning some good things. They return one of the ACC's top quarterbacks. They return linebacker Joe Giles-Harris, cornerback Mark Gilbert, which are two of the league's best defenders. However, I look at the schedule. Northwestern, not only just these road games, but the first two are back-to-back. Northwestern on the road, Baylor on the road. They're going to play Georgia Tech on the road. They're going to play Miami on the road. Then they got Clemson on the road. That is 5 road games that, to me, I look at the schedule and go, I don't think they're winning any of these games. Maybe Baylor will be the game that they win. I want to talk about the schedule first. How tough on a scale of, we'll do an even number, 1 to 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, how tough do you see this schedule being for the Duke Blue Devils?
9.
Why?
Well,
you did one of my biggest fears of 9. Back to you, Ricky.
You asked one question. You didn't say, Brandon, please expand.
Why is it a 9?
So you're looking at a different, what feels very similar in the first 4 games to last year. But I don't think that you're going to have the same success that you had last year against these teams. You're looking at, you're on the road at Northwestern. And a Northwestern team that, look for them to be competitive. On the road at Baylor, look for Baylor to be much more competitive. Virginia Tech, you have them at home, but that doesn't mean much. They're going to be a tough team. Then Saturday, November 3rd, on the road at Miami. Very hard game. 2 weeks later, on the road at Clemson. Very hard game. You look where they have a lot of these games this year. You're away. You're on the road. Not only are you playing tough teams, you're on the road against these teams. And honestly, the schedule starts off kind of tough, and it ends extremely tough. That's why I look for Duke to really have a tough schedule this year, and they have been done no favors by the schedule makers. Again, like I mentioned with North Carolina, Duke is looking themselves at a very, very daunting task right here this year in 2018. We're looking at improved teams, and we're looking at teams last year that are only getting better. Like Clemson, they're only getting better. Miami, they're most likely only getting better. Virginia Tech, same thing. And you play all of them. You play all of them, and it's going to be a difficult task, a daunting task, but one that, if you look to Duke last season, they had a 6-game losing streak at one point. Yeah. Where, you know what they averaged in points on that losing streak? 12 points, Ricky. Okay.
I was looking at it. The most they scored was 21 against Virginia.
Just over 12 points on your 6-game losing streak. But when you won your 3 games at the end, including the bowl game against NIU, you put up over 36 points per game. So now this takes me to the point of Daniel Jones. How good will he be this season? How good of a leader will he be this season? And how consistent will he be throughout the year?
Well, to me, the question on offense is, yes, he's important. But to me, the bigger question is the offensive line. Because that was the main problem. Like, it's kind of like the phrase that I heard recently this week, that a fish rots from the head down. I think it was one of the commenters said that this week. Kind of the same thing from the offense. You have your front line. The offense is going to rot from the head down, from the front back. And the way I look at it is, I want to ask you with the offensive line, because I'm not very optimistic about this offensive line. You lose 3 starters, which isn't good. You got to get guys that come back up. But here's a quote from David Cutcliffe, head coach of the Dukies. The offensive line is a little more unproven, but I think we do have depth because we've got competition there. We believe we can be better than what we've been there, but we've got to prove it. The question I want to ask you is not whether or not the depth will do this or that, just the basic fact of at the end of the year, if you had to put your money on it, is this offensive line going to prove that they can be better than last year?
Yeah. With a question mark, but
you sound very confident in that answer.
Clearly. But here's the reason
like
why.
Like a standardized test, just go with B.
No, but here's the reason why I say yes, but with a question mark at the end. It's because last season, Daniel Jones, he has over 2,600 yards, 14 touchdowns, low on the touchdowns, high on the picks with 11. A good part of that is the offensive line. Forced throws, hurried attempts, bad decisions, and I'm not going to just put it all on the O-line. Part of it is Daniel Jones wasn't all that great last season. You know, he actually took a step back from the year before, his redshirt freshman year. But this offensive line has had a year to grow, to improve. You lose 3 guys. But the important thing in Cutliffe's quote was they've got competition here. Good, healthy competition is very, very productive and positive for your team. We see that so many times in quarterback battles. Why do coaches a lot of times want to have quarterback battles? Because it's supposed to make them better. Why would David Cutcliffe want to have competition and some battles here at the offensive line position? Because it's supposed to make them better.
Yeah.
And that's what he's looking for. Because he believes that if they have depth, they've got a number of guys who will be able to compete against each other for open positions. That's a great way of thinking, and that's the right way of thinking. That's why I do believe that they'll be better, and it's positive that they have the depth there in case of injury or in case you just feel like, okay, this one's underperforming. We really need to make a change here at left tackle, right tackle, whatever it is, and go with the next guy up. But I also do believe that you can be better than what you were last year. And that's why I think that at the end of the day, at the end of the season, we will be saying that Duke's offensive line was better than what they were at the end of the 2017 season.
Well, and I keep looking at the schedule too, and there are tough games here. Like I said, almost the entire road schedule for them minus like a Pitt, I wouldn't want to play on the road. I think Baylor's going to be better than they were last year, Northwestern. Georgia Tech, that one was a weird one last year where, yeah, Duke got a good win against them last year, but that was at home for you guys. How is that going to be against Georgia Tech on the road? And then Miami and Clemson, good luck. You're not going to win those games. You're not walking into Death Valley and Miami and winning those games.
But here's the thing. And I'm not trying to defend Duke and say, oh, Duke's going to win. But Duke was 21st last season in terms of scoring defense and total defense. At the end of last season, they were 21st in the nation. Ricky, if this offense could be consistent and they could play the way they played their last 3 games of the 2017 season, this team actually is in a dogfight with Clemson. This team could actually be in a dogfight with Miami. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but because on paper, Miami is leaps and bounds better, Clemson's leaps and bounds better. But we always know. Here's the interesting thing, and I'm not going to say book it, mark it now, but Clemson always finds a way. They do it every season to lose to a team they shouldn't lose to. And could this Duke team be that team that they shouldn't lose to, that they do lose to in a crucial part in the season at the very end when they're competing for the top spot on the other side of the ACC with NC State? Could you see it? Could you see it?
No. And the reason why, you know what? No, I'm still going to say no. And the reason why is I'm going back through Clemson's schedules, and I have gone back. I'm at 2014 now, 2013. No, I'm still going to say no. And the reason why is it's kind of been a mix of, because the first thing I thought of was, like last year, they lost to Syracuse. They shouldn't have lost that game. But then my first thought was, yeah, but they were on the road. Like, that's why they lost. They were on the road. No way you go into Death Valley and you win. I wonder what happened in 2016. Oh, that's right. They lost to Pitt. Oh, they lost at... No, that one was at Death Valley. Like, that's the thought process. But then I was like, Duke, Pitt that year. No, I'm not saying that Duke wins that game. And the thing that I look at with Duke is this is how I see... If I gave my prediction like we're doing for the NFL right now with the prediction videos, this is how I see their schedule going. At the base, 3 wins is the lowest I have for this team. 3 wins is the lowest you are going to have. Book it. You're going to beat NC Central. You're going to beat North Carolina. You're going to beat, where's the other one that I'm missing? Oh, Wake Forest. You're going to beat them too. No, was it Wake Forest? Yeah, Wake Forest. So those are your 3 wins. And the only reason why I'm throwing Wake Forest in there is that you beat them last year and their quarterback situation is more of a question. We talked about that last week. It's more of a question than it was last year. I think you can beat them. So that's your baseline. The other games, though, Army. I'm going to throw in Georgia Tech because you beat them last year. Pitt. This is a team that I could see 3 at the low, 5 or 6 at the high. Like I said, Army, Georgia Tech, Pitt, you add those 3 onto the 3 I already said. All right, now we're cooking with some fire here. There's a bowl game there. So that's kind of how I feel. Army, I'm not going to say that's a win only because the offensive line, another thing that I think with that is, yeah, you might have depth at that position. It's going to take some time over the year for that group to kind of gel and come together. They're not going to be ready right away against an Army. That's why I would say that Army might get the win, but NC Central, they'll be ready. If you beat Georgia Tech, you beat Pitt, North Carolina, and Wake Forest. This could be a 5-win team, but realistically, I'm going to go more on the low side and say that the only teams they beat are NC Central, North Carolina, and Wake Forest.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Are you
No, that's what I'm
serious? You're
going
serious that you think the Duke's only going to get 3 wins this year?
I think they only get 3 wins this year, but they can't get 5 or 6. Like, there's a window there. I just don't, because like this year, I don't think Virginia's another one where I go, maybe they win. No, they don't win. I don't think they win that game. I think Pitt edges them out. I think Virginia edges them out. I don't think Georgia Tech loses to Duke like they did last year. And maybe I'm overselling Northwestern and Baylor. I'm already just saying those are losses at the beginning of the year. I think this is a team that starts out 0-3, goes to 1-3, then they lose their next, 5 games? Then it's win, loss, win. Okay,
so I don't want to come off as sounding, and I think this is the second time I'm saying this now that I'm defending Duke, but Duke is supposedly, if you look at everything, supposed to be one of the best defensive fronts that they've had ever in their program. Again, we're adding on to what was already the 21st ranked scoring defense and total defense last season. So you've got Giles-Harris, you got Ben Humphreys, they're the anchors there. You're returning possibly one of the best cornerbacks in the conference in Mark Gilbert. Guy was a complete beast last year. I think had 6 interceptions, had 15 pass deflections. That's what they've got a good defense. The number one question, so I'm not worried there. I'm thrilled, and I think that there's going to be a number of games that they'll win because of that defense. The question to me is going to be Daniel Jones. Can he be consistent? Can he go back to his 2016 campaign, I think, when he threw 16 touchdowns to just 9 interceptions? Better than what he did last year. He threw 14 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, over 2,600 yards. He had a lot of really poor throws last year. He had a lot of rush throws. A lot of that came from the offensive line. Not all of it, but a lot of it came from the offensive line. The hope is that the offensive line is going to be improved because of the competition. If the offensive line is improved, then Daniel Jones is going to feel a little bit more comfortable in the pocket and feel like he can do more, wait a little bit longer, not have to rush the throws, have a little bit more accuracy. That could happen.
Mm-hmm.
I look for this Duke team to at least be at 6 or 7 wins. They have a great defense. They have a very good defense. It's the offense to me that is number one. Daniel Jones, he can be one of the best quarterbacks, yes, in the conference. But can he live up to that? Can he be that? Will his offensive line allow him to be that? You've got Britton Brown, a guy on the run in the running back position. There's a lot of excitement around him. He's got a lot of tools that he brings. There's a lot of energy there. This team is, I think, a lot better than what you're giving it credit for. They were towards the bottom last season, and I'm not saying that this team is going to compete at the top this year. But with this defense, and if this offense can come along and be that offense that scored the 36 points a game in the last 3 games and won their first 4 games last year, you're looking at a team that is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
That a Miami team and a Clemson team and a Virginia Tech team can't just say, it's Duke, we're going to win. They're going to have to watch out because, again, this defense, if it shows up and it comes to play every single game, you're looking at really good pressure that Duke's putting on all of these quarterbacks and all of these offenses.
Mm-hmm.
The number one thing you're looking at Clemson, their defense is outstanding. They're going to be incredible. They're going to be great. That's going to be a really tough game for Duke.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking Duke could be competitive in these difficult games. I'm not saying they're going to win them, but I am saying that they're going to be competitive. And how Duke starts off at the beginning of the year, I think, is going to be crucial. If Daniel Jones struggles at the beginning of the season, if the offensive line struggles at the beginning of the season, it's going to be a long season for Duke. Because if they're not able to win any of those games at the begining of the year, or they go 1-3 to start the year, that's going to be really tough for them, because bouncing back from that to then go against Virginia Tech, and then it just kind of could spiral out of control from there.
And that's the thing. I think you confused my words a little bit. When I say 3 wins, I'm not saying if de facto that's what it's going to be. That's what I see, but the big reason why is the huge big old question mark I got about that offense. The defense isn't going to be the problem for this team. It's going to be an offense. This is a team that, like you said, during their 6-game losing streak last year, only averaged, 12 points?
12 points
per game. On the year last year, they only averaged 19.8. That's not good if you want to be a winning program. And just looking at last year, what the offense did. 60 points against NC Central. You can do the same that year. Like I said, that game shouldn't be a question. 41 against Northwestern, with it being on the road this year, I don't think you score 41. And I don't think that Northwestern only scores 17 on these guys. I think the scores are more closer in that one, and I like Northwestern in that game. Baylor, again, you're playing them on the road. Matt Rule in year number 2. Maybe you score 20 points in that game, or maybe you score 20 points in that game, but I expect Baylor's offense, because they scored 34. Duke did last year. I don't see them doing that. I see them scoring a little bit less in Baylor, and that's going to be a shootout. Baylor at home that offense is going to have some confidence. I just expect it to be an offensive explosion from Baylor. 27-17, you beat North Carolina. I could see that again. Like, North Carolina to me is going to be dead last in this conference, in this division again. Then Miami, only 6 points. Yeah, I could see that again. Miami's a really good team, and I don't see this offense performing well against them. Virginia, that was a close one, 28-21. Like I said, that was one that last year was in Virginia. You get them at home. Maybe that game flips this year. Maybe that's one of the ones that flips. Florida State, you only scored 10 points, and they only scored 17, and that was a depleted Florida State team. Now you're going to take that game out. That was a home game, by the way. Take that game out, put in a road game against Clemson. We already know how great their defense is. If Lawrence is the starting quarterback, hell, if even Kelly Bryant's the starting quarterback, I think both of those quarterbacks can wake up out of bed that morning with a 20-point lead on Duke. Like, they will wake up out of bed, get out of bed with at least 17 points already on the scoreboard. That's a no contest to me with Clemson and Duke. I know what you're saying. Oh, Duke has lost to some teams they shouldn't have. I don't think Duke is that team this year if they do lose to a team that is below them. Pitt, that's another one, like I said, that could flip. You only scored 17 against them. Virginia Tech, you only scored 3 against. I don't see you having an offensive explosion against them. And Army played you close last year, only kept you to 16 points. It's those games that are important. Georgia Tech's going to be interesting. I don't think that Duke scores 43 like they did last year. Wake Forest is kind of in the same vein as North Carolina. You get them at home this year. They have questions at quarterback. I don't think there's a question in that one. If the offense proves me wrong, then yes, they could be a 5-6 win team. Otherwise, I'm looking at this team, looking at 3 wins, going, this team doesn't have that much. And Cutcliffe put it like this. We know this team can run. This was the most physical Duke team that has ever been out here in quite some time. This is something we've got to build on. I'm anxious to see. Any final thoughts on Duke before we move on?
Yeah, you focused on their offense. So they hit a really tough 6-game stretch last season. I don't foresee that happening again. You focused a lot on the scores that they had from the offensive side, but from October 14th until November 11th, they gave up 17 points, 24 points, 24 points, and 21 points. Their defense kept them in the game every single time. If they've got the offense, they win those games. And I don't see Duke having such a bad run again this year. I think they're going to be more consistent offensively. Another year under the belt of Daniel Jones, an offensive line that hopefully is coming along a little bit, especially here, in the spring, and then over the summer. They're working, they're having their competitions, they're getting better and stronger and faster, and you have good options there, the wide receiver spot and the running back spot. Another year with this offense, Duke should be at least a 6 or 7 win team with a possible cap at 8 wins. If they did really well, they can't be so bad where they lose 6 games in a row and only score 12 points. I just don't see that happening.
I'm going to say yet again, like I said, 3 to 5 is my window this year. I'm very low on Duke, and the thing that you brought up, I focused on the offense because that's my question mark. The defense, it comes down to this. Like you brought up those games, 24-24, 21 was what they held their opponents to. I'm going to go very basic here. As long as if the other team scores more points, it doesn't matter how many points you held them to. They still scored more than you. And that's what it's going to be. This offense will have to be the answer for this team. I feel like there could be a lot of games this year where Duke were sitting after that game going, man, that defense played really good. Man, can you just imagine if the offense showed up? Like, man, this could be a 6-win team if the offense showed up. But, man, that defense was really good. Let's just look at the defense because they did really good. But let's not look at the offense because they didn't. Now, the offense could prove me wrong, and if they do, then I see what you're saying. 6 wins, maybe 7 wins on the year. But I think if the offense shows up, 6 wins. If not, I'll go with my first prediction of 3 wins on the year for Duke. And then we're looking at it like, okay, what needs to change for the Duke Blue Devils next season? This is where you guys come in. I point to the camera, and it's off because we went over on time a little bit, but we were talking a lot about Duke football. This is where you guys come in. Let us know what you're thinking down below in that comment section. What do you think for Duke? Am I totally off for thinking they'll be a 3-win team yet again? Let us know down below in the comment section what you're thinking.